Back rolling right here on G5 Classified, and joining us now is the executive director of the Reese Senior Bowl. That would be Jim Nagy. Jim, how's it going, man? Thanks for carving out some time.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. So how's it going? I saw about 6 days ago is when you started to really get the invites and all the basically out and accepted. I mean, how many guys have accepted invites at this moment, and how many more guys do you have on your radar?
Yeah, there was all the invites arrived early last week on the campuses. Yeah, and they started rolling in. So I don't know, we're somewhere in that 25, 30 range right now, just trying to figure out which schools have actually handed out the invites and which coaches are still sitting on them. I mean, that's always been kind of the senior bowl's protocol, is sending the invites to the coaches and letting those guys decide when they want to do it. Every coach has, different timing. I was talking to John Summerall last week, and he was holding on to we invited one of the Tulane players, and he wanted to get through that Navy game this weekend. He was going to give that out today. So, it's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, Coach. Can you talk about your decision to I know it's bigger than just one person, but to keep the game in Mobile? I'm from Fairhope, Alabama. I grew up going to the game. So keeping it in Mobile was a huge deal for me and a lot of people in that area. Can you kind of talk about what went into the decision to keep the game there?
There wasn't really a decision. We were approached by the National Football League to move the game to Orlando to replace the Pro Bowl back 7 years ago when I took the job. And this game means too much to our community. I told them that day. I mean, not only just the tradition of the game being here, but the economic impact it has on community. I mean, the game brings in almost $50 million in a week. And when you're in a city this size, I mean, that would be a tremendous burden, tremendous loss if the Mobile community lost that money. So in addition, all the things we do year round in the Mobile market with youth football and high school football and everything we do to give back. We never considered leaving. That was never a consideration. But that's where the draft starts in Mobile started. We just really tried to tie the game to the city and make it synonymous. And that's what was really cool last year, watching the first round of the draft and having 10 first rounders go, and having the guys on all the different networks saying Mobile sometimes more than they were saying Senior Bowl. So this community means everything to us.
Now, holler at me about getting this gig 7 years ago. You had an 18-year career as a scout in the NFL, capped off by 5 really good years with the Seahawks, where you guys brought in a lot of good talent. Super Bowl was mixed in there somewhere. Holler at me about the transition, the career transition, and why it was made, and why this is your main gig at this particular moment.
Yeah, it was really a family decision. We've been living in Mobile since 2007. It's my wife's hometown. And this job came up, and my son was in 8th grade at the time, getting ready to play high school sports, football, basketball. And my daughter was like in 4th or 5th grade, and now she's in high school. So it was just an opportunity to kind of still do what I love to do. And that's evaluate talent. And certainly in this role, I mean, I've grown. There's a lot more on my plate now than there was when I was scouting. Just got to grow a little bit personally, but no, it was all about the family and being around for my son. When you're scouting in the league, you're on the road 200 nights a year. So it's not a real family friendly profession. So that's all it was about.
Can you kind of talk to me about what makes the Senior Bowl have such staying power? We've seen a lot of all-star games come and go. We've also seen, the East-West Shrine Bowl has been pretty good, and they've elevated their level. But Mobile, the Senior Bowl, the Reese's brand, NFL Network seems to be the standard still. Can you talk about what kind of goes into that, keeping that level of excellence and being the premier postseason showcase game for college guys?
Well, it's always been the best game. I think we've done a lot of good things in the space over the last 7 years. I mean, when I jumped on social media, there was a lot of snarky people out there saying, Nagy, nobody cares about your little game. And like you said, rising tides raise all ships. I mean, I feel like we've helped out the Shrine Bowl, and again, the league putting some resources behind the Shrine Bowl wiped out the NFLPA game. So that's helped lift the Shrine Bowl as well. But, the numbers are the numbers. We've got 195 first round picks since the year 2000, and all the other all-star games combined have 2. So, the game's always been the best game. This is the game that always had the NFL coaches. And to me, it's about our community. What makes this game better is the community aspect of it. These kids get treated unbelievably well. We've had the same staff in place. Some of these same people, we call them our Senior Bowl family, they've been around the game for 30 years. So operationally, nobody functions at the level we do. It's impossible when you're moving games around all the time and you don't have the full-time support staff. We've got 300 volunteer committee members that love this game and want to treat these players well when they come to Mobile and have the players have a great experience. So yeah, to me, and then it's just the buy-in of the NFL. I mean, the 32 clubs. I mean, they love coming to Mobile. It's always been the best platform to evaluate players. And the cool part is the social media has really helped us. Has helped our rosters connect with these players. I mean, I think that's the biggest piece of advice I got when I took the job from a couple friends in the agent community. Was like, man, you need to wrestle the power away from us. Right now, we hold too much power in this thing, telling these kids whether or not to play in these games or not. So, I think using social media, getting these players excited about coming to Mobile, so when they get the invite, like they're not thinking twice about accepting or not. So, again, we're coming off 4 straight years with over 100 players drafted. That when we got here, the Senior Bowl, we were like in the 70s. It was like 74, 76, 78 players drafted. Last year, we had 110 guys drafted. So I just think there's been more and more buy-in from the players. And then it's just relationships, man. It's relationships with all the college coaches and guys in the NFL. And so we're very grateful for them too. Because the NFL guys, when they talk to agents, they tell them they want to see the players here in Mobile. So it all works hand in hand, but it comes down to relationships.
It's funny you say that because it's the only time of the year I have to wait maybe a day to get a table at Dumbwaiter, or there's a 20-minute line at Haberdashery to get a drink. But it's funny because everybody loves that. I like the environment because you'll see a guy that's a 21-year-old blogger just graduated and he's getting a drink next to NFL GM. It's a different environment down there for sure. So it's one of my favorite stops of the year to come back home and kind of be around that atmosphere.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, the whole NFL community descends on the town, and it's still a small town feel. It's not like I love the Combine. I've been going to the Combine forever and love going up there. Jeff Foster does a great job with that event. But it feels more corporate. Indy's certainly a much bigger city than Mobile. But when you're here, you kind of run into everybody. I tell people you could put a lawn chair out in front of our offices here on Dolphin Street, and you would see every GM and head coach at some point in the week pass by. So no, it is unique. It has a really unique feel to it.
Now, you guys evaluate all types of talent from Power 4. You go Group of 5 down. I mean, your first invite that was accepted this year, I believe, was a William and Mary offensive tackle. But we're a Group of 5 podcast, so holler at me about how you guys go about sort of evaluating players when the competition's not quite what it is at the Power 4 level. We know the SEC and the Big Ten definitely lend themselves to being able to evaluate and translate all of what they're doing on the field to NFL football. Not so much Group of 5 and lower. How do you go about evaluating those types of players?
Well, we start off just looking at the 2D depth charts in the offseason and get our eyeballs on all those guys at the FBS level. I'm sure there's a drop-off from Power 4 to Group of 5, but that's still really good football, and we pride ourselves at all levels. We've had a couple Division III guys in the game since we got here 7 years ago, and one of them, Quinn Miners, is one of the best guards in the league right now. So, you just got to adjust your eye a little bit. Again, you're just looking for the physical traits of a player and kind of, the ceiling athletically and potential. I guess the best way to say it is just the physical potential of a player. And then you watch instincts, and those things don't change. Instincts don't change, regardless of what level. Instincts, effort, competitiveness, physicality, those things don't change. So, and that's the transfer portal has frankly hurt all the lower levels, including the Group of 5. You're seeing, FCS guys jumping up to Group of 5, but then the Group of 5 guys jumping up to the Power 4. So we're in a little bit of a different time. The last couple of years, there's been a ton of change in college football, and not necessarily all for the good, in my opinion. You see these Group of 5 programs that do a really good job of developing their players, and then they get them to a point, their junior, senior year, to really take advantage of that development. And then next thing you know, they're off to chasing power form money. So, yeah, you just, again, it's the evaluation from group of 5 to power 4 isn't very hard. Where it gets hard is, you get down to the D2 and D3 levels. That's challenging.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the week, going down there, is watching those lower level, smaller school guys get to go up against the big guys, because Quinyon Mitchell, I think a lot of people knew who he was coming into Mobile last year, but he dominated. But the year before, I was really excited to see Carl Brooks. He's the guy that caught my eye when I was watching Bowling Green and those guys play, and he got down there and he dominated the week down there in practice. So I was really excited to see that. Cody Mount, an FCS guy from North Dakota State, held up very well, played all 5 spots over the offensive line. So I think that's one of my favorite parts, is getting to see those guys, because most of the time, if they're good enough to catch your eye on that tape, they're good enough to be in that atmosphere, in that environment, and compete with those guys as well.
Yeah, it's picking the right ones. It's one thing just to have small school helmets in the game for the sake of it, but that's not what it's about. It's about bringing the best guys. And like when I was at William & Mary talking to Charles Grant off on the side after we did the invite, I told him, like, there's nobody down here you won't be able to block. Just like come in here with confidence. That's probably the biggest change, or biggest difference, I should say, between coming down here as a scout for 20 some years, and then, being in the position I'm in now, is I've been a little more in tune to the anxiety, for the players behind the week. And it's not just, and I told Charles this, it's not just the small school guys. I mean, trust me, the Alabama guys, the Georgia guys, I mean, they all feel it too. This is the best of the best. And they know it's a big week, and there's a lot on these guys, between the interview process and learning a playbook, going on the field and, competing and in front of key decision makers. I mean, you look over and there's Mike Tomlin, or there's, John Schneider. I mean, these guys that are going to be making the picks in April, that can be nerve wracking. So, yeah, it's about bringing the right ones. And I feel like we've done that over the last 6-7 years.
Yeah, now something I've always wondered about you bring in all these guys for the Senior Bowl. Some of them have really good weekends or weeks, and then they get drafted. And then sometimes you'll see their development not go the way that you thought it would go, or they get dropped into a bad situation. Does that frustrate you, sort of watching that? And also, I do want to just sort of dig into this, but it comes to the quarterback position. How do you feel about the way that it's developed in the NFL, or maybe the lack of time they give for a quarterback to develop? We've seen Caleb Williams have some struggles. Anthony Richardson's a guy who's gotten sat down. So what about all that?
Yeah, first part of the question, yeah, we love following our guys, and you love when they get in a situation where you feel like they're set up for success. I mean, it's not going to happen everywhere. You want to have guys make the most of their opportunities. And so you can't control it. We're always happy for the guys that go on and have good NFL careers, certainly. And then with the quarterback thing, yeah, we're just we're not seeing a lot of patience at the position. We're seeing a lack of development. I think it just stems from our culture right now in society. And we're in this must prove it now kind of short leash, microwave, whatever you want to call it, whatever term you want to call it. I mean, I think we all know what I'm talking about. And it's to the detriment of the player. I mean, the 2 most recent examples where guys have been able to sit and learn a little bit are Jordan Love and Pat Mahomes, and those both worked out great. So hopefully more teams will be doing that, even with the Patriots this year. Even though Drake May only sat for 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever, at least he was able to get into a season and watch Jacoby Brissett play a little bit. And now Drake's been having some success here. So, I think the league is going to have to resist the urge, whether it's the ownership group or the fan bases. I mean, that's where these coaches feel the pressure from. And hopefully these coaches, can resist the temptation and sit some of these guys down a little bit. But yeah, you hit it on the head. Some of these guys just aren't landing in great situations where they're set up for a lot of success early on. Yeah, or they're not ready for it.
Can you kind of talk about what goes into your offensive line scouting? Because, we're both offensive linemen. We both play G5 FCS football. So it's cool to see a guy like McClendon Curtis. His offensive line coach, Kevin Revis, coached me at Jacksonville State. He had been raving to me about this kid for years. So it's cool to see a guy like him get a shot. I remember a couple years ago, you invited a kid like BJ Autry from Jacksonville State. What goes into that offensive line scouting? How deep into the trenches are you guys getting? Are you sending a bunch of people out? Are you going off recommendations? Or are you just, randomly coming across these guys? What's that process like for the trenches?
No, I mean, that's why we built what we have. That's why we built this thing the way we built it. When I got here, they didn't have tape in the office. So again, that sounds crazy in hindsight. When I called the league office and, told them who I was and how do we get the tape? And they're like, Jim, we've never given All-Star games tape before. I like, well, how do you want me to do our job? How do you want me to do the job then? Right. I mean, because again, I'm getting hit up. If I told you that the amount of calls I've gotten in the last 3 days from head coaches, family members, you got to do the work. If you give people a reason why their player isn't getting invited, that's one thing. But if we weren't doing the work, I mean, we've got 11 former NFL scouts on our staff to bring credibility to this thing. They're guys I trust. They're guys I've been on the road with. So we're doing it the best way we can do it, and then we obviously include the NFL in our process as well with the calls we make around the league. And those are exhaustive phone calls. We had 14 3-hour phone calls sharing notes. And I told the guys upstairs, like, you guys got to understand, like, the NFL is the most secretive place in the world and most paranoid place in the world. And we just had 14 teams completely open up their draft boards to us, where they were like sharing specific grades on players like that. So my point to them was that doesn't just happen, like that's a lot of years of relationship building where you've got trust, where they're open with you, knowing it's not going to leave the office here in Mobile, Alabama. So, yeah, we don't take recommendations. Yeah, if coaches want to call us and talk about how much they love a guy and talk about his character and his makeup and why they think he's going to make it, great. We'd love to listen to that. But again, if every college coach was, going to bat for his guy, I mean, we would never be able to put this thing together. So I'm just glad we do it the way we do it. I believe in our process. We've kind of tweaked it every year. After 6-7 years now, I feel like we're in the right spot in terms of getting this thing right. So, but with the offensive lineman, man, it's the same as all the positions. You're just trying to look for the best players and bring the best players possible. That's it. Simple as that.
Do you remember number 71, Gabe Kuhn, being on a short list at any point in 2017, 2018, that type of time, something like that? Maybe.
I don't know.
Heard of the guy? I don't know. You ever heard of him? That name ever cross your face? I ended up at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. That's where I ended up after my senior season.
I never went to the NFLPA game. It's too bad it's not here anymore. Dane Vandernat did a great job of that game. It's really a shame that it's still not around. I think Dane did a really good job running that game. I heard nothing but good things from guys in the NFL. And again, these platforms, I feel like we've got the best game here, but again, they're all advantageous. Like I just went down and spoke to a team ranked in the top 10 last week, and spoke to all their draft eligible guys. And again, I told you, Senior Bowl is one thing. We'd love to get a couple of you guys in the game. But if you get invited to another game, go do it. They're all great opportunities, as long as you're getting in front of NFL scouts, that's a good thing. So yeah, man, that's awesome, man. More power to you. It's great.
Yeah, Kai. So I think that was a pretty overwhelming no answer. He never saw that name come across his face my senior year, 2017. Now, final thing for you. What have you thought of the college football season?
Well, that's a big open-ended question.
Well, how about this? Let's focus it in a little bit. What teams do you think can win the national championship as well? Because it feels like we've had a lot of parity in the SEC, Oregon and Ohio State very overwhelmingly at the top in the Big Ten. You have some teams. I mean, BYU just lost. Indiana's still kicking around there undefeated. I think that's sort of where I want to go with this. Who do you think's still in there and can actually win a national championship? It feels like it's a pretty wide array of schools compared to normal.
Yeah, I think when you look at who's going to win a national championship every year, all you have to do is look at which teams have the most pro prospects. It shakes out that way every year. When Alabama was on their run, they had the most NFL guys drafted basically every year. And right now, just based off our Senior Bowl invites and where we've got this thing graded, the three teams up at the top, and then there's a separation, are Ohio State, Oregon, and Georgia. To me, we sent 11 Senior Bowl invites to Columbus, Ohio, and the next most was, I believe, Georgia. That doesn't include the juniors. We can't invite the juniors until they declare for the draft. But again, to me, those are the three most talented teams in the country.
Yep, I hear you. Well,
I like that. What's your question? I got one more, and then we'll get you out of here. About the proverbial SEC bias? Do you think that that's a real thing, or is the strength of schedule actually real? Or are you one of these people that believe that the SEC should add another conference game, or the non-conference that's been pretty, toughly scheduled is sufficient enough?
Yeah, I don't think they need to do anything to their schedule. I mean, again, you put some of these other teams in the SEC that have 0 losses or a loss, they'd have 3 or 4 losses in the SEC. And again, I live down here in SEC country, but I'm a Big Ten guy. But it's hard to dispute the SEC is not the best conference. Year in and year out, the numbers are always around 20. A quarter of the draft comes from the SEC, from one conference. So, I mean, for people that are big fans of other conferences, that's great. Like I said, I'm a Big Ten guy, but I mean, the facts are the facts. The SEC, have the best teams year in and year out. They have the most pro prospects year in and year out. So hopefully a couple of those teams get in this playoff.
For sure. Well, Jim, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for carving out some time with us.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. He's the executive director of the Reese Senior Bowl, Jim Nagy.